Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Next Step in Recovery free webinar. I'm Aileen Boundy of Align With Your Purpose, and I help people who are embracing recovery from addiction to take the next step forward into the life of their dreams. I know from first-hand experience just how horrific and desperate addiction is, how helpless you feel, how ashamed and confused you are. So if you're a person who's in recovery, or you have a family member or a friend who's in recovery, then you're in the right place right now. And with me today, I am delighted to welcome my friend and colleague, Jan Riley. Jan is a wonderfully talented artist and very creative person, a speaker, teacher, entrepreneur, and idea sparker. She's going to be teaching a module on Friday on addiction and recovery. We're going to have a conversation around that. So it's great to have you here, Jan. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Great. Aileen, I'm so excited. You know, one of the things is that as an entrepreneur, I tend to bring all of who I am into my work, into everything. And I guess maybe that's being creative, but I never brought in the recovery part. In fact, I never talked about it. One of the things that always was a little bit not a match to me is all the internet marketing and stuff like that. No one ever talked about your personal development much. They talk about your passion. They talk about your story and stuff like that. But having been in recovery for so long and having that be such a big part of my story, it was kind of weird to me that it was always missing. Mm-hmm. And yet at the same time, I found it to be a bit of a challenge to bring recovery into my entrepreneurship.
Right.
Because I kept wanting certain kinds of support and knowledge and conversations around stuff that weren't happening for me, at least.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So as a lifelong artist, I've always been really creative, a musician, an artist, always made things. I love teaching and sharing. And so I really like connecting with people, on whatever level. And then, of course, there's a part of me that kind of, like every artist, wants to sort of hold up at home at times and sort of do my own thing and throw it out into the world. And all of these aspects have led me to where I am now. And one of the most exciting parts to me about what's happening with the technology that allows us to communicate is that we can have these kinds of conversations with the people that really want to have them.
Yes.
I'm no longer have to feel alone in my town or my city with the people that I may or may not be able to connect with on this level. And I was very excited because even though we're literally millions of alcoholics and addicts and Al-Anons out there, we all know that sometimes you need that really specific group or person to really connect with to take you to the next level. And when we started talking about this, I knew immediately this had been so close to my heart for so long, and honestly, I just had not really found very many other people to talk to about it. So I think you're right on track because it's one thing to get clean, or to get sober, or to have start to focus on yourself and your own recovery. But there's going to be a place where, at least for me, I realized, now what?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Thank you very much for sharing all of that. That you're so right. When our first conversation around this was very exciting for me too, because we just seemed to click and we agreed and felt the same about so many aspects of this whole question. Yes, my whole story about recovery has been hidden for a long time. I'm only really starting to share it now because I've been encouraged by some very good friends and coaches to do that. And I'm finding it really empowering, and the idea of being able to help others do that
Yeah.
through having done it myself is it's really got me jazzed up. So I'll just want to get started really, and I'd like to just address what I've called this the next step in recovery, this webinar. And what is that? And to answer that question, I'd like to share a little bit about my story of addiction to alcohol and my recovery from that addiction. I'll never know when I crossed what's sometimes referred to as that invisible line between heavy drinking and active alcoholism. You can't put a date on it. It just sort of creeps up on you at some point. And by the time I admitted to myself that I had a problem, I was in my late 30s, and I'd been drinking since I was a teenager. I mean, since mid-teens, really. And for a long time, alcohol was it seemed to be the answer to my problems in just getting out in the world. I was very, very shy. I had very little confidence. And, the alcohol, a drink would give me courage to relax me and make me able to do things that I wouldn't have done without it. I'd have just stood in the corner and not spoken to anyone. Whereas, that thing we call Dutch courage, you heard that phrase, that little bit of courage to just make you more sociable. And it's funny, since I've been sober, I've noticed at social occasions that very often in a big group of people, the atmosphere can be quite tense at first, even if it's a happy occasion, and then there comes a point when the alcohol starts to kick in, and you can almost pinpoint it to the minute. You can see everything just starts to get a bit more relaxed, and people start, loosening up a bit, and that's what it was for me. It was what they call the social lubricant. It worked beautifully for me. It helped me feel more confident and all the rest of it. It worked great until it didn't.
Right.
And this is we're not here to go into the progression about relying on alcohol to depending on it into addiction, which is addiction for me is when you continue to do something that is harmful to you and you can't stop, really. Let's just say that for me, I finally admitted I was addicted to it sometime in my early 40s, and yet I spent years trying to prove that I wasn't. There's this big thing called denial. No, I can stop, by myself. Anyhow, I'm not going to get into that now because we've only got an hour and I've got a lot of things to get through. But this is just to let you know that I know what I'm talking about, and I've been there. And if you're even in early recovery, then I can relate to what you're going through. And as Jan said earlier, there comes a point where you get to you get into recovery, you start to get your life back together, and then it's like, okay, now what? Where do I go from here? And that's really where I'm focused at the moment. So I've been in recovery for over 14 years now, and my life has changed hugely. My recovery's been based on a 12-step program, and I see a lot of people who've begun to get their life back together, but there are things we can do to help. Jan, is there anything you'd like to add there that you?
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed is, for me, there was always a nagging feeling. And I'm a recovering drug addict. And I say that because some people relate more to being a drug addict. And I always did.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
They're a little more rough and tumble and don't want anyone to tell them what to do and stuff like that. Okay, it fits my personality. But for me, it was never about how much I took. It was the fact that I knew I couldn't stop. Mm. And there was this part of me that once I really understood that I had this problem, the shame became so unbearable. Now, the shame was just compounded on shame that I had carried around with me since I was a child, and all kinds of ways that I learned how to hate myself. I'd learned that early on. And so this was at first a way for me to get out of it right?
Sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then it just morphed into another way that it proved it, which
Right.
is like so many coping mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
Coping mechanisms are one thing, but when it becomes a lifestyle, that's another. And that's true with almost anything. But I didn't know the difference. You know, the thing is, most normal people, they really don't do stuff that's going to kill them, pretending it's the only thing that will save them.
That's very
when
well
you try
put,
to explain to someone that you take so many drugs, praying to God that you're not going to have a heart attack that moment, and you'll never do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And then the first thought when your heart starts beating again is, how can I get more? Because everything inside of you is saying, I really have to do this. Even though your brain is not completely dead, you're going like, oh, this may not make sense. And it's really hard because a normal person's going to go like, well, that was unpleasant. Let's not do that anymore.
Right. Yes.
And yet every single addict I know, an alcoholic I know, they have all had that same experience where it's this level of compulsion that is really hard to describe. And I hope if you're not an addict or an alcoholic, you never experience it. Yeah. But if you are, you understand. And it left me feeling, of course, out of control, really ashamed of who I was, but more, I had this feeling, and it didn't matter how much I used. It was the fact that I couldn't stop. This was not who I was supposed to be. It's like, this is not what my life, this is not who I'm supposed to be. And I felt really trapped. And luckily, that voice carried me to a place where I got my ass to a meeting. And ironically, I had been going to Al-Anon for about 3 or 4 years before I went into NA. So I knew about the 12-step program. Mm-hmm. But my problems with people were more immediate. Right. And that program also, I've been in that program for many, many, many years and taught me how to live differently, because it's about the behavior of what I do. Mm-hmm. And I think more than anything, what I want to say to people is, there is a part of you that's been in there that wants to save your ass. There's no other way to save it, and save your soul and save your spirit, and has been doing that. And now you're at a place where you can listen to it. That's and right, you can feed that part of you. Mm. And that is both inspiring and sometimes kind of terrifying.
Oh yeah, definitely terrifying. I can relate to that. Yes.
And I think once again, it's another one of those kind of, maybe a situation that normal people don't have, but most people in my circles, they have that. This is terrifying, because one, most of us on this end, we blew it really big. There are plenty of wreckage of our lives that we're having to clean up and that we don't really want to do again, or at least for me. Yeah. And I hear that a lot. And so it's scary to think, ooh, and of course I've made tons of mistakes. Well, I've been clean longer than I was using, so I've made more mistakes clean than using. Not the same ones all, but the thing is that through this process, I've understood that some of these things that I thought were huge character defects, the being scared, the sort of wanting to avoid this good part of me, I realized it might be a symptom or a side effect or a part of my addiction, but the other hand, it's also part of just being human. Yeah. And that's a good thing. That it's okay to give myself a break and some compassion, and to really let myself walk through that the way my path looks. Right. Yeah. And and that's what I want to say. The hope to people is that all of the stuff that you're experiencing around this, if it doesn't look like everybody else's, my entrepreneur journey didn't look like everybody else's either.
Sure, they're all
You
different. We're all individuals, yes.
know? So
So yeah, so thanks so much, Jan, for sharing all of that. It's you know, this could be someone watching. This could be you. If you are in recovery, or if you know someone who is, you may have started to get your life back together. Have, yeah, somewhere to live, the basics. You've got somewhere to live. Maybe even got a new job. You've got to the point where you've made significant changes in your life, and you start to want more. There's something inside you that's
yeah.
pushing you, that wants you to move forward with your life, but you're scared. You may be lacking in confidence. You don't have that crutch anymore. You don't have the drugs or the booze or whatever it happens to be to prop you up, and so you need to start learning like a small person again. Really, you may be working the steps or some other modality of recovery, but what you're feeling is kind of beyond their scope in some ways, and that's where what I'm doing here comes in. That's where the next step in recovery comes in. It's about rebuilding your life, and we're going to talk today about a great place to start, which is all to do with awakening your inner wisdom and trusting its messages. So today I'm going to share with you 4 simple keys to connecting with who you really are. And these keys are, and they might sound really simple, these keys are breathe, connect, explore, and slow down. Okay, 4 simple little words, but let me just expand on them a little bit. Excuse me, I've been struggling with a sore throat, and it's starting to dry up again, so I need my water. So I'm going to go into those in some detail. We're going to talk about them with Jan, and with what you learn today, you'll be able to build on the foundations of your recovery and move your life forward. And I'm talking about beginning to nurture the relationship that you've got already, probably with your own higher power, whatever you conceive that to be, and your own innate inner wisdom, which I believe speaks to you all the time. When you're tuned in and can hear the messages that are coming from your own intuition, your soul speaking to you, your inner guidance, and you're also in a place where you trust them, then you'll find that problems, they don't disappear, but you're able to cope with them because you know how to deal with them. And you can deal with life on life's terms because you have a sound connection, with your inner guidance. Jan, anything to just pop in there?
This is exactly what I was just going to say, is that one of the problems, at least for me, was after being beat down by my addiction and by everything that I had gone through, I didn't trust this part inside of me. Even though it had been there all along saying, this is not your path, Jan. This is not what you want to do. This is not who you are. And I hear this with so many other people. It's how do you start to trust yourself? Because, we trusted the voice of addiction that always said, one more time, this is going to be it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say that, and it's very scary because you can lose your life when you go back out there. And I know people that have. So trusting that inner voice is a little tricky, but it's essential because that is what we're here to do. That's right. And the process of learning that and showing other people, I'm convinced, is the single most important transition that happens after you stop putting whatever in. Right. For some people, it's very fast. For some people, it takes years. And some people never go there. But for me, that was critical. It was one day when I understood that there was a part of me that had kept me safe because I was still alive and I wasn't in a mental hospital or in prison. And that I needed to shut up and trust it. And quit trying to talk it into stuff. That it was okay to trust it. again. And I don't think I'd had that probably since I was a very young kid.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. Yeah.
And I often suspect many people actually use and drink because at some point they're so afraid of trusting that part of them. It's part of the process of shutting that off.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean, it's what I was going to say as well is that, that the inner guidance it speaks to you, and I'm going to talk about that in a little while, how you can hear the messages, but we don't listen to them, we ignore them, and like you say, we have to start to listen and we have to start to trust. So thank you, Jan, for your comments.
I love your 4 points. Yeah, that's great. Let's talk.
Yeah, but I'd like to just get started with a little grounding, centering meditation, if that's okay. So unless you're driving, in which case, don't listen to this part. It's only a few minutes, but I love to just make a point of getting centered and grounded. And if you'd like to just join me and make yourself comfortable, have a quick stretch if you're, sitting somewhere you've been sitting for a little while. And if you're just in a chair, just uncross your legs and arms and begin by becoming aware of your breath. We're going to be talking about the breath quite a little bit in here. And so just observe your breath, see where what it's doing for you at the moment. It's an automatic process, isn't it? We don't normally think about breathing, but not many of us are breathing very efficiently or effectively. So just take a moment to focus on that. You can keep your eyes open or close them. It's completely up to you. Is it good and relaxed and deep, or is it rather shallow and perhaps a little ragged? I want you just to breathe in through your nose, follow the breath down into your lungs, and then exhale for a little bit longer than your in-breath. So if you breathe in for 3, maybe out for 5. And as you're exhaling, imagine that you're exhaling all of the concerns from your day, all of the worries, things that have been going through your mind, things on your to-do list. Breathe in deeply and exhale all those thoughts. On the next breath, just deepen your breath. Take it right down into your belly and become aware of your diaphragm. As you inhale, relax your belly so the diaphragm can extend down and allow the lungs to expand fully. Try to avoid, puffing your chest out. The movement should be in your belly, not in your upper body. And as you exhale, pull your belly back in towards your spine. This pushes your diaphragm back up and helps to empty the lungs. Now take your breath down into your heart space. Follow it down your body, down your legs, just breathing deeply. Down through the bottom of your feet into the earth. All the way down through the center to all of the rocks and layers of minerals and things, all the way to the center of the earth. And imagine the center of the earth as a beautiful, happy place. I see it as a big sort of cavern, but it's not dark, it's very bright and light, and there's a gorgeous, huge crystal in the middle of it. And imagine these beams of light that have gone down your legs and through your feet. Imagine them as like little tendrils or roots that have gone down, and they're going to wrap around that crystal and really anchor you into Mother Earth. And then they're going to mix with the power from that beautiful crystal, whichever crystal you choose it. And they're going to come back up, all of the energy and the light is going to come back up those tendrils, those roots, all the way back up through the bottom of your feet into your heart space again, and up to connect with your higher self above you, and with the divine or spirit or source, whatever you like to call it, with your own higher power. And imagine a beam of pure white light coming down from above, down through your crown chakra, back into your heart space. And then with your heartbeat and with your breath, just expand that energy, your own energy field out, to take in the room you're sitting, and then maybe the building that you're sitting in. Expand it a little further out to your county or state. And as you're doing that, just send unconditional love from your heart, from Mother Earth, and from your higher power and the divine. Send it all out to all living beings, all living things, and expand it out to encompass the whole globe. And send unconditional love to, especially to people around the globe who are in recovery or maybe still struggling with addiction. And then just continue to breathe. I love this place, this quiet place in meditation. It's where I can connect with my inner guidance, and where I can connect with my higher power and ask questions. So on your next out breath, just bring yourself back into the room gently. Start to wriggle your toes and fingers. Have a little stretch, have some water. And I'd like to invite you for the rest of the call to remain focused on your breath more consciously. Breathe more consciously. Be aware of how deeply you're breathing as we continue. And stay with me right till the end of the call, and I'll give you a link to a free bonus meditation gift, which will help you to begin that daily practice. Now, I'm going to show you how to take the transformation that we're going to be talking about with these 4 keys today and turn it into lasting transformation that really changes your life long term in recovery. And I'll cover as much as I can in the time we have together, but I promise I'll show you how you can get more at the end. So are you still breathing consciously? Yeah? Okay, good. So you've put down the drink, you've stopped using, you're in recovery, you're getting your life back together. It's so much better than when you were in the madness of addiction. But as we said before, there comes a point where you want more. Something's pushing you and you feel confused. Shouldn't you just be content with your sobriety? Maybe you feel you don't deserve anything more. There are certainly plenty of people who will tell you that if you listen to them. You're this terrible person who did some awful things under the influence. And yet part of your journey in recovery is dealing with those, And if you have these thoughts of wanting something more, of expansion, of a desire for adventure and new experiences, this is normal. This is life. It's not wrong to have this. So, and you wouldn't be having, I honestly believe you would not be having these thoughts without being able to accomplish them. So I invite you to bring to mind your ideal life, just for a couple of minutes while we're still semi in the meditation, bring to mind your ideal life, your dream day, take a few seconds to visualize how that looks. Where are you living? Who's with you? Where are you working? What do you do for fun? I'm here to tell you can have it. And here are the 4 keys to awaken your inner wisdom and connect with who you really are. So breathing that we just did in the meditation, it calms you down and it makes you feel more peaceful. Another little trick that I used to use when I was working full-time in education was to turn around slowly to, if I was really, feeling unhappy in the moment with whatever was going on, turn around slowly, count to 10, breathe deeply, and as I got back 360 degrees, just begin to smile and exhale. But breathing really is a great place to start. I don't know if you have anything you want to add in there, Jan, about breathing.
Well, it's another irony of one of the ironies of being an addict is that I got really used to taking something to change me.
Yeah.
That sounds silly. But imagine if every time you wanted to celebrate, you took something, had a bad mood, you take something. I mean, this is what we do. We drink or get high no matter what. But it's fueled by our internal selves, right?
Yeah.
However, the resistance to doing simple things that will change how you feel is extraordinary.
I know.
Have you seen that too?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It's like you tell a room full of junkies, let's sit here and breathe, and they're like gonna they're gonna mob. You're gonna, but and it's really interesting because we trained ourselves literally like Pavlov's dogs to respond to stuff by taking it, and yet the whole act that you can do this on your own. And I have to say, I laugh about it now because I know that's kind of part of my nature. I often resist the best things first. So now I kind of know myself and I go like, oh, I might need to try that because of my instant sort of automatic resistance.
Yeah, yeah.
And instead of hating myself or putting myself down, now I just laugh and go, oh. And it has come from trusting that inner wisdom that basically said, it's okay, just notice it and make your choice.
Yes, make a better choice.
And that there are so many ways to accomplish what you were originally trying to do to begin with, which was cope with your emotions and exactly. Deal with life, because life is stressful and life is great, and so there are ways to do with it. You may not have known it back then.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's the amazing thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So yes, just connecting with this inner guidance, like Jan said, we do as a group, we do resist what's best for us, but sometimes some of us get there, and that's great. So the second key that I'm going to talk about is connect, and it's connecting with this inner guidance, with your higher self, with your higher power, as we call it in the 12-step program. And you may have heard this little phrase bandied about, the answers you seek are within. Your inner guidance is giving you little nudges and hints all the time. But, are you tuned into these messages? Are you picking them up? Because you feel them, but you may quite easily ignore them. And as we were saying before, you have to learn how to trust them. So every time you experience an emotion, as Jan just said, it shows up as a physical feeling in your body. It comes. And if this is an unpleasant emotion, it's something that you don't like the feeling of, like you're scared to go into that party, or you don't want to talk to that person, or whatever it happens to be. The feeling comes, and what we used to do was medicate it, drink something, take a drug, or even just ignore it and stuff it down. And now we have to learn in sobriety, when we're clean and sober, we have to learn how to deal with them. And I believe that those are actually messages from the part of you, from your soul, you might say, that knows what's best for you. It's your inner guidance. And it's typically this sinking feeling in your stomach, or a tightness in your throat or chest. And more than likely, if you've not been enjoying it, you've been getting rid of it or just ignoring it somehow. So one thing you can do is begin to become more aware of these feelings and consider what they're telling you. So how do you do that? Well, as we just did now, meditation and actually going into to connect, to make that, to take time to slow down and connect and make that connection with the messages and pay attention to them and say, that's interesting. I wonder what that message is. Instead of just, oh my God, I don't like that feeling, give me something to take it away. So meditation is a great one, and establishing and developing that spiritual connection with something that's bigger than you. A lot of people combine this with yoga as well. I know that's yoga is, for me, it's always been associated with meditation. That's where I learned how to meditate in yoga class. So bringing the physical body in as well is, for me, it's part of it, and it helps too. And just taking quiet time for reflection, believing that you're worth spending a little bit of time on, and give yourself that daily time just to tune in and connect with yourself. And it's a bit like a muscle, isn't it? What you have to start to use it a little more, and the more you use it, the more you can rely on it, and the more you can trust it. What you say?
One thing that I suggest for people in terms of finding that place inside of you that helps like, is this the good voice or kind of the bad, bad voice, because they're both there.
Sure.
And not, I can have a negative voice that's kind of low and sneaky. But early on, someone said, what if you ask your body to give you a clear signal? So when you're meditating, if you don't have a place, like if your stomach isn't it or whatever, ask your body, just sit there when you're quiet and say, please tell me a signal that I can pay attention to and I always include in a loving and gentle way. Okay. That's because great. You really don't want to start having like ulcers or something, or back, throw your back up. Seriously, because your body will respond and you will start to feel something. It might be here. It might be your arm. Just follow whatever it is. And when that place shows up in your consciousness, touch it, say thank you, and say, please tell me when I need to pay attention in a gentle and loving way. And then your job is over the next week or two to say, hey, tell me when to pay attention, and to start to tap into it.
That's right.
It can be a very effective and simple tool, and that will be yours alone. And I think it's like you were saying with yoga, it's taking an active part.
That's right, yeah.
Some people wait till it kind of shows up like a bad headache or something negative, but you can make it a positive thing.
Thank you for clarifying that. That's a great idea. Yes, if you're not getting a signal, ask for one.
And
nice and simple.
A nice one. Yeah. That was someone else had to tell me that, because I'm like, I'll wait till my stomach hurts. And she's like, it doesn't have to hurt. But that, you see, once again, it's like, this is your inner guidance. Your inner guidance isn't trying to hurt me. And the other thing I wanted to say about this is I've noticed it can shift. So don't be surprised if something stops working. Ask if it's shifted. Right. Oh, yes. Are you telling me in a different way?
Yeah, and it's like having a conversation, isn't it, with your body to ask for these clues. Yeah. That's great.
So those have been very helpful for me, both of those things.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a very helpful explanation there. That's lovely. So the third key that I want to look at is explore. And I love this word, explore. Explore, it has connotations of adventure and sort of pushing beyond things that you already know, and expansion, and moving ahead, really. But I'm just going to stick for today with a couple of things and just say the two things that you can explore are, one is the story that you're telling yourself, and I thought you might like that one.
Yep.
And the second one, which I'll just touch on a little bit is explore your intuitive gifts. So the story that you're telling yourself, there are two ways of exploring your story. And one is the story you've been telling yourself, or that you did tell yourself maybe in the past,
Right.
about why you were stuck where you were. And the second way to look at it is a bit more of an empowering way of looking at your life and learning the lessons, so that you can move forward. So if your story, what you say about your life and how happy you are with it, if your story is all about justifying your current situation and why you're not happy with it, then it doesn't serve you, really. If it's all about blame and pointing the finger and not taking responsibility, it really does not serve you. But you may be stuck telling this story because you've done it for a long time. I know I did.
Yep.
If you don't like the story you've been telling forever, then you have to change it. For years, I told myself, and anybody who would listen actually, that I was stuck in the job I had and stuck in the country where I was living and stuck. And it was all my boss's fault, or my husband's fault, or the government's fault. And for me to leave that job and that country, I had to change the story that I spoke, both the story I spoke to myself and the story I was telling everybody else, because it was very disempowering. I had to stop blaming other people. And I have to say, this story is the one I was telling, I would say it would be in early sobriety. I hadn't really grown very much. I was still stuck in this place, and I had to stop blaming other people, places, things that happened, and really take responsibility for my own life and for the changes that I wanted to make, and change it into an adventure, as I said before, and step into uncertainty and know that I could cope with whatever happened. I was only able to do this, once I got sober and started to trust these messages, to have a connection with something bigger than me, a spiritual connection that I began to develop, and started to trust, as we've been saying all the way through, these messages from my inner guidance, and when it comes down to it, I think it's quite simple, really. Does this make me feel good? Yes, well, keep doing it. No, well, stop and make a different choice. I think it's really as simple as that. Would you agree, Jan, with that?
Yes. Well, I think being an addict makes me responsibility avertant. I mean, that's like a huge hallmark right there. Yeah. It's another one of those traits of that disease that is to me somewhat what I've always considered sort of a personality trait. Mm-hmm. And it's another thing of being it's my initial first reaction is no way am I doing that. In fact, for many years I built my entire life on not having to be responsible for whatever reasons, things I learned when I was early on, things that had happened. Being an addict was a perfect dovetail to it. So I don't know which came first or second. But the funny thing is, as people have pointed out to me, I haven't been a responsible adult. So clearly it isn't the only, I have to laugh all the time because I think wow, inside my head is just this crazy land. And I laugh at it because sometimes it's like dealing with, a bratty teenager. You don't give them your checkbook, and let them drive your car. You may have to put up with their sass, but but the thing is that on a deep level, I was just terrified. So the idea of being responsible for anything, much less my own life, what was completely terrifying. And once I was really able to sit with that part of myself and, acknowledge that on a deep level, there were parts of me that had been really hurt. And no wonder the idea of responsibility was not in her purview. Right. You have to have some level of security to be able to be responsible, and she had none. So I want to say that one of the things that has helped me, and this might help other people, is the higher my level of self-compassion.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed self-compassion and acceptance,
Yeah.
then my actions of responsibility followed. Now, I may not naturally have that, yippee, I get to be responsible for my whole entire life now, response to it. And that's okay, because it's about the daily choices. Another thing that I practice with this explore is what I call experimenting.
Right.
Because there's a reading in Al-Anon that says, I can do this for one day, that what I may not be able to do for the rest of my life, but I can do it for one day. And that concept that, really honestly, just for today, I'm going to experiment with being a responsible person. I'm going to act like that even when I don't feel like it. I'm going to act like that if I don't believe I am. I'm going to act compassionate towards myself and pretend or experiment to see what happens, because tricking my brain that way allows me to blend that in. And then about 10 years ago, I just stumbled upon another technique that has really changed my life, and that is the and or.
Right.
As people who have spent significant parts of our lives destroying ourselves as a means of trying to live, most of us are real all or nothing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all or nothing. And that's really hard to break in a big world that has lots of levels. So for me, it was always, I'm a good person or I'm a bad person.
Yes.
I'm connected, I'm disconnected. I'm doing, and honestly, this was killing me. So I started saying, let's say I'm having a hard time with my story that I tell myself, that some of it's really disempowering. I never follow through with my stuff. And, I know better and I should be in a different place by now or whatever. My problem is if I try to throw that story out, it gives it a certain power if I haven't been able to actually let go of it. So I say, this is where I am, and I'm a child of God, and I've lived through everything. And at times I've been incredibly connected, and I know it's still in there even when I can't feel it. And I'm on this journey of exploring right now, and it's probably exciting even when I can't feel it. And that has helped me so much.
That's a great one. Yeah.
Because I have a real hard time with, like even just doing affirmations, because if I don't believe them, I resonate the exact opposite feeling.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was having the same thing. So I love the exploring, because we're explorers. That's in our DNA.
Definitely. Yes.
And so for me, it's like any way I can keep that going. I call it that sort of walk around, there's a big mess, but sometimes you just got to walk around it and keep walking. So,
yeah. Thank you. That's been really interesting. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us. So we've still got another key to go, but I do want to just touch on something I would like to tell you about, which is that we've been through some really crucial things here, about what you can do to move forward on your road to recovery and start trusting your intuition and enjoy this kind of awakening of your inner wisdom. And I hope you'll have felt that connection during the meditation. And just imagine, once you've done this and practiced it for a while, imagine how much easier your life will be when you can rely on this source of your own inner wisdom. You don't dither over decisions anymore. You know intuitively, you know the right answer for you in any given situation. And as we said before, you develop this muscle over time. You come to trust its messages. And what happens eventually is that the connection with your inner wisdom supports you through whatever life brings you. You know, imagine living life with that level of ease and grace. Now, it's not 100% all the time. You know, we all have off days, but most of the time, when you've got that connection, it really is something that can help you move forward so much. And ultimately, it's up to you, you know, individually to take responsibility for taking that next step. You know, it's a bit like that saying about exercise. You can't hire someone to do your push-ups for you, and you can't hire somebody else to meditate for you, or to connect with your inner wisdom, or to learn more about the patterns in nature, or how a more conscious appreciation of all of these things can serve to help your personal and spiritual growth. And you certainly can't get anybody else to do your yoga practice for you. You have to do it yourself. So today we've been exploring a little bit what life is like, and I invited you to imagine your dream life, you know, where you'll be living, who with, and look at where you are now and at the ideal life you dream, which is in your future. And you've had a little taste there in that meditation and in that little moment where you thought of it, of how wonderful that can be. And in a sense, what we've been looking at today, and we're not finished yet, I've still got a couple of things to share with you. In a sense, what you've been looking at today, it's a bit like a taster menu for a workshop that I'm doing, a training, a transformational workshop actually, where all of these ideas and processes we've been talking about will be explored in depth. And Jan is going to be teaching one of the modules on the workshop for me, and some of the other friends that I had with me on the other webinar too. And this is a live workshop from the comfort of your own home this Friday, the 17th of July. And it starts at 12 noon Eastern, which is 5 o'clock in the UK. And it's going to be 4 hours on Friday. There'll be, amongst other things, there'll be an introduction. There'll be a lot more of meditation and getting into that in a lot more depth with a lot more background information. There's going to be a module on addiction recovery that Jan's going to be leading. And I think we've subtitled that Getting More Out of Life Without Lapsing into Obsession, which is always something that we can get into quite easily, those of us in this field. We're going to be exploring your relationship with sound and music and nature, because all of these things can help you to develop this connection and expand this connection with your inner guidance, with your higher self. And those are the live modules for Friday. And as well as the live modules on Friday, you're also going to get access to 10 more content-packed modules from experts in the field, just to give you a few ideas. Taking you deeper into the subject of your spiritual connection is an interview with Roger Marsh, who's a spiritual life coach from California. We're going to touch on the importance of self-love, which Jan just mentioned there, with Crystalia Marie. The power of your own story, which we've also mentioned a little bit, is going to be gone into in depth, and look at the hero's journey and your own hero's journey with author and speaker Rhonda Del Boccio. And you're going to look at the importance of attending to your physical environment using the art of feng shui with a lady called Sherry Diamond, who is known as the Flow Doctor. We're going to look at sound, music, nature, and how to discover your own intuitive spiritual gifts. Excuse me, with a lovely friend of mine called Misa Hopkins, who's a sound healer, and she'll help you feel a deeper sense of connection with who you really are. So you'll be able to access these 10 modules in the 2 weeks after the 4 live ones on Friday, and all the way through there's going to be a focus on integrating these things into your daily practice, into your daily life, so you can start to feel shifts of awareness and consciousness very quickly. Excuse me, my voice is starting to go a little bit now. There'll be more guided meditations and practical suggestions and opportunities to interact live on Friday and get your questions answered. And you'll also, at the very end of it, about 2 weeks afterwards, there's going to be a live Q&A call, tying it all together and creating a blueprint for you to move forward at the end of the month. Along with this workshop, you also get live weekly calls for support and celebration for a whole year. So, you can work through these in 2 weeks, or you can take longer. It can go at your own pace, but every week you can come on the calls and just share where you're at and what you found works, and any challenges you've got, or any breakthroughs, any celebrations. You can bring them all to the call. And there are some bonuses that you can get if you're going to join us. There's a life purpose discovery session with me. There's 3 months free membership to my membership site called Path to Purpose, where you get lessons, you get weekly calls again, content-packed lessons, a private Facebook group as well, and a community to join, because you need to have people around you who are on the same track as you. It's a great thing to do. There's an e-course from Cristalia Marie on using power symbols to unblock your energy. There's a life-transforming TV show from Dr. Joe Rubino to jumpstart the law of attraction in your life. And another bonus is an interview with Jack Canfield about the law of attraction as well. Jack Canfield is very well known as the author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. All these bonuses, are yours if you go and sign up for the workshop, which is Awakening Your Inner Wisdom, 4 Keys to Connecting with Who You Really Are. So again, I'd love lots of information, but a lot of practical things to do as well that you can adopt immediately, that'll change and help you to lead to go for lasting transformation in your long-term recovery, which is where I'd love to support you. And you can find out all about it by going to the URL, which is beneath me, just here, alignwithyourpurpose.com/blog/next step. And you'll get all the details there. Now, the cumulative value of all of this stuff, it's hard to put a value on stuff that's going to change your life, actually. But let's say, and I haven't just picked this out of thin air, I have considered it very carefully. The value of this is about $397, but I would like it to be accessible to as many people as possible. So the regular price is going to be $197. If, however, you act now and you get the early bird special, which is until midnight tonight Pacific time, which I think is 8 o'clock in the morning here in the UK, it's an early bird special. It's only $97, and that includes all of those bonuses that I've detailed, which you can just find. You can read about them on that link there. And the live workshop on Friday with myself, with Jan, with Cynthia, who some of you know from the other webinar we did, and then access to all the other modules and the final Q&A at the end of the month. I really would look forward to supporting you as you move forward, in your recovery. So that's the way that you can work with me beyond this, because obviously we can't cover all of that in 1 hour, and we're almost at the hour, and I haven't even finished yet. So I'm going to move swiftly on to the 4th key. And the 4th key, so we've done breathe, connect, explore, and the last one is slow down. And that's really slow down to be mindful. And that means mindful, one word, not mindful of stuff, And we lead such hectic lives, and we've talked about this already, Jan, together. There's so much to do and so little time to do it. And between, your family life, your commitments, your job, there's a tendency and so much to do online as well. Just speed up so you can get through more things on your to-do list. And this typically leads to overwhelm and burnout and exhaustion, if nothing else.
Yeah,
you probably know people who are too exhausted to do anything apart from just their job and the basics of looking after themselves and their family. And very often themselves comes last on the list, especially if you're one of us. You feel you're not good enough, maybe. And all you can do is, just do the basics, shopping, cooking, cleaning, and collapse into bed. But there is another way, and you can start really small. It's a commitment to yourself, as well as the breathing that we've mentioned and the meditation. Slow down. Just take a look at everything you do and see what you could remove from your list. What's really crucial. And if that feels too big, then just practice mindfulness. And that simply means being fully present in the moment. And start small. I mean, something as simple as, when you wash your hands, most of us wash our hands several times a day doing different things. I can't remember, normally what I'm doing, but pay attention to it. You can just make that a mindful practice instead of doing it automatically and your mind's going 20 to the dozen thinking of the next thing on your list. Focus on the running water. You can be grateful for having that running water. Breathe in the smell of the soap if you have nice smelling soap. Have a look at your hands, oh my goodness, they've been through some things with me. Just be aware of what your hands have done for you and breathe. And just in that moment, it might be less than a minute, but be in the moment. And the more you add these little minutes up, and if you can just add breathing deeply like we've done today to any moment of mindfulness you can add, then that helps too. Do you do that at all, Jan? Do you do mindfulness?
Yes, actually, all the time. It's what I call asking the right question.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times the problem is I forget to ask the right question. Like, is this who I want to be in the moment?
Mm-hmm.
Not what is this person making me want to do?
Right.
Or
yeah.
What is this situation making me want to do? Anytime you can combine a physical aspect of something you're doing in your body with the ability to connect deeper inside, it magnifies it, I think. And it will help it. Now, I do want to say this. I don't want people to leave before I tell you what I think is the most exciting thing about you being an alcoholic, an addict, or an Al-Anon or some form of addiction. You have had the most amazing experience in your body, in your body chemistry, in your life, in your spiritual experience of something that took you in a very strong way in a direction you had no idea would go. Now, unfortunately, it was the wrong direction. But the benefit of this is that you can see just how powerful lining up your spirit, your mind, and your actions can become. It took you without you even knowing. There are so many aspects that we have that are powerful and positive if we start to really utilize them. And that is the real blessing, in my opinion, of what my experience was. And mindfulness really, in a way, is developing a different set of mind-body habits, but that have a positive and predictable outcome.
Right, yes. Yeah. And one that you've chosen to take.
Exactly. Like before, it was walk in the house, grab a beer, sit down, do your little ritual. I mean, it's the ritual that was the hardest thing to change.
Yeah.
And yet we can create those kind of rituals that can take us to a really powerful and positive place.
That's right. Yeah.
Even beyond, as you've been saying, beyond what initially we might have ever imagined. Definitely. And I personally believe that that's why you're on this path.
That's true. Yeah. Thank you, Jan. So I'd like to just thank all of you who are on here with us, whether you're watching live today or watching the replay. if you're on the event page or on YouTube, thank you so much for being with us today and investing in yourself. I'd like to give you a free bonus meditation gift. I can email it to you afterwards, or you can go directly to my website, which is below me at the minute. But instead of the next step at the very end is for the workshop. If you change that and put just meditation, it will take you to a page where you can download a couple of guided meditations I've done. And there'll be more coming as I do them. So remember to breathe deeply whenever you remember it, and integrate little pockets of mindfulness into your day. And thank you all, and thank you, Jan, so much for being here. I've really enjoyed our conversation and your contributions to it. I didn't have a chance to show anybody your beautiful posters, but I hope we'll be able to maybe do that on Friday.
Yep.
And Jan does these gorgeous posters with little messages on, really, which are, some of them are to do with recovery and some of them are just to do with personal development, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can go to wordposters.com and see them.
Wordposters.
Okay.
Wordposters.com. So
there's lots.
There. Lots of places to go to at the end of this. So again, thank you all. And remember that the bonuses and the early bird price of $97 go away at midnight Pacific time, which is 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, UK. And thanks again, everyone, for being here. And I'll see you at the workshop. Thank you, Jan.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. It's been great.